Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up, you're already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to present two people who are widely known and respected industry-wide, but especially throughout the talent management lane of the business. And they both work overtime to help support the indie sector vis-a-vis their work with NITO, the National Independent Talent Organization. I promise you will leave today smarter and more enlightened than you arrived, so welcome. Before we get here, let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I'm a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And please ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the session. Also, and this is very important, please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the host and speakers. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this series free. Special thanks to MedJet, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, and Better Than Booze. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome my good friend, Nelly Neben. She has had over 3 decades of experience in the entertainment industry. She began her career as a concert promoter in LA, working with Concerts West under renowned manager Tom Hullett. This experience paved the way for her transition into artist management and promoting large-scale shows. Later, Nelly founded Access Artist Management, where as president, she has guided a roster of Grammy and Emmy-winning artists to long-term success. Her expertise in strategic partnerships and negotiations spans across music, film, TV, books, theater, digital media, and branding, greatly enhancing the visibility and profitability of her clients. Nelly also served as vice president and general manager of touring at Base Hologram, where she led the marketing and booking of hologram shows featuring icons as Whitney Houston, Roy Orbison, and Maria Callas. Throughout her career, Nelly has worked with legendary artists including Earth, Wind and Fire, the Beach Boys, Warrant, and Rita Coolidge, as well as actors such as Betty Buckley and Nia Peoples. She's also on the executive board of NITO, further underscoring her commitment to fostering talent across diverse genres and industries. Welcome, Nelly. It is such an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
And joining Nelly is Wayne Forte. Entourage Talent Associates owner and entrepreneur, Wayne is an experienced and celebrated veteran of the music industry, born and raised in New York. He began booking student concerts at NC State University, and ever since he's worked with many of the music industry's global superstars, including The Clash, Hall & Oates, Joe Jackson, and Tom Petty, among many others. In addition to developing a global relationship with David Bowie, which spanned over 2 decades. At age 30, Wayne and the late Michael Farrell established their own agency, International Talent Group, representing A-list acts including Duran Duran, The Cure, Depeche Mode, Genesis, Phil Collins, Pink Floyd, King Crimson, and the tragically hip Steve Miller Band, Julian Lennon, Radiohead, Billy Idol, and many others, bringing many of these artists to North America for the very first time, as well as later booking and co-producing David Bowie's renowned Serious Moonlight and Glass Spiders tours. In 1993, Wayne founded Entourage Talent Associates, a personalized agency consulting firm continuing to oversee and maintain careers of established artists such as Steve Hackett, Joan Armatrading, Procol Harum, Joe Satriani, as well as assisting in developing the career of renowned and longtime client guitarist and Grammy winner Derek Trucks, and also working for the last 15 years developing Tedeschi Truck Bands into a multi-day sellout live attraction. It is my pleasure to welcome these 2 rock stars to our platform today. Take it away, guys.
Well, first thing I want to say is I don't know if we're rock stars. We just work for a living. I mean,
You're rock stars.
we do represent rock stars, though.
Yeah, speak for yourself, okay?
Okay, Nelly's a rock star. Sorry, I'm just a working guy. Um, Nelly, you're in Atlanta, right?
Yep.
And how often do you spend time in Atlanta? You're an LA person, so you're bi-coastal. I'm envious, very envious.
I'm bi-coastal now. I go back between LA and Atlanta. Got out of LA during the fires,
Yeah,
and luckily I was far from it. Didn't have an issue, thank God. But unfortunately, some of my friends did, and it's a very sad situation. And we have another fire there today in another location. So I hope this all ends very quickly and we get some rain.
and
And
so do I. I hope. I mean, I'm very far away because I'm in New York, but at the other end of the planet, basically, or the other end of the country. But I have a lot of associates out there and a lot of friends, as you know, because you're one of them who live there. And our best wishes go to everybody out there, and may they stay safe.
absolutely.
So let's jump into it, Nelly. What do you got? What are you working on?
What am I working on? For me, it's always a touring business for me. It's the most important thing that drives me. And I love getting the bands out on the road and dealing with logistics and doing all those great things and trying to find new projects and trying to add something new to my resume every year starts something new, something fun, something I haven't accomplished yet. So um, definitely, at some point, I really hope I get into some kind of TV production because I haven't really delved into that too much. So,
Yeah, that's
uh,
something you haven't done, but you deal all over the world, right? I mean, you've been to India,
everywhere.
Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Europe,
Oh yeah, no,
all
we
over the place.
just everybody tours everywhere. All different clients that have been that have their little niches of where they're really popular. So I've had the advantage of traveling all over the world. It's been amazing. And every artist has their niche. Every artist has places where they've really made a career for themselves long term, and that's been really great to just keep moving that needle for them. And also just, for me as a manager, it's always just trying to find new avenues for them, trying to do different things. Because, like right now, I still manage Rita Coolidge after all these years. She actually retired in 2020. Her last appearance was on a cruise, a music cruise, and sure enough, COVID hit. She was like, "That's it. That's my calling. I'm done."
Um,
And now it's just about like how to move that forward and find new opportunities for her as a legacy artist,
right.
not touring anymore.
Yeah.
So
So what do you like? What do you like best about your job or your position?
I like the creative aspect. If I can be involved with artists that are engaging and love creativity and drive me, because, I mean, doing the same thing over and over again gets really, really boring. But if you've got an artist that is just like has an abundance of ideas and can just suck you in to like gets you so excited about doing things and accomplishing things. I think that drives a manager like crazy.
Yeah. Well, it drives me too as an agent. I got to tell you, if it's, and I probably shouldn't say this. I don't know who's actually watching and listening, but if it was just the day-to-day mundane booking dates, I mean, I've done it for so long. I do that in my sleep. I literally wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and go, yeah, I can fill a date over here. I can call this guy. I make a note. I can't call him at 3 in the morning, obviously, but I'll
Yeah.
make a note, and I have notes. I have lists. These are my lists from next to my bed, just in case everybody. Okay, every single night I date them. So I have lists and lists and lists of things that I want, that I need to do, that I need to take care of, or ideas. But it's the creative thing, as you said. That's the thing that drives me. Doing those, co-producing those world tours that I did, starting out with a new act, and building them up, and then, getting them from that point. Now, how I can get them from A to B, and how can I get them from A to B, 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 and C? Like, can I do more than one night? Can I do multiple nights? Can I get them into a bigger venue? I mean, those are the things which turn on a lot of agents, but the challenges, I think, are the things. So yes, it's that part of it, the creativity part of it, kind of how I ended up getting involved, which gets to a point of where we actually met, but how I got involved in the documentary that I produced. Um, that was just a happenstance, having a client playing a festival. And we're talking about Lock and Festive. I don't know if Pete Shapiro's on here, but shout out to Pete. Shout out to Dave Fry, who helped put it together. So Lock and Fest for years, did their thing down in Virginia. They did special events. They had special kinds of shows. They created one. They usually had themes involved. Nelly and I met backstage, actually down there.
Oh, we met before then. We met when we were discussing putting the event together.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
That's
We
right.
actually met backstage. I think it was at the Wiltern during, I think you had Joe Satriani playing there.
Oh, right. Exactly. Oh,
Yes.
good memory. So there you
Thank
go. My memory's going, just so everybody knows, my memory's going. Nelly remembers. That's right. We did. The first time we met, you drove in to downtown LA. Or near downtown LA. I was very impressed on like a Friday or Saturday night to have a meeting. But that's right. That's where we met. Anyway, this event was without getting into all the gory details, the event was put together. It was a special thing. It was a Tedeschi Trucks band performing basically Mad Dogs and Englishmen. I had talked to the manager at the time about, perhaps filming it. There's a long involved story with that. It took us months and months. We finally got it organized. We got footage. And then after that was like, the show was over. The show was phenomenal. It was fantastic. It was special because we had a lot of special guests, and then we had a lot of the old Mad Dogs that came by. We had 12 people on stage with 12-piece bands. So we had 24 people on stage. And then it was like, it just sat there, and I thought, okay, I've never done this before, but maybe it could be fun, or maybe I will commit suicide at the end of it. I'm not sure, but let's take a shot. So I dove into it. So I know what you're talking about. I had no idea how to get involved and produce a film, and do whatever had to be done. And in certain
Well,
respects, COVID helped because when we shut down, I had a little bit more time to focus on it.
yeah, but to put it all in perspective from the artist side, I got the call because Rita Coolidge was one of the original Mad Dogs and Englishmen
Yeah.
members, and there was a lot of history there. And it was a 45-year reunion that it never happened before. Watching those people walk into this rehearsal room and seeing their faces of
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, my long lost friend, and seeing them together again 45 years later.
Yeah.
For me as a manager, just looking at my client's face, just being in awe and so happy. It was incredible, and to have Leon Russell in the room who helped put the whole tour together, and just an incredible amount of people. And it just made you relive it. And having a documentary that came out of it that documents this event, for me, I know was a huge thing. Because again, my thing is, I want to build a legacy for my clients, and I want to make sure that their stories are told. And I got the opportunity to do that through this. So I was very thankful to Wayne for the amount of work that he put behind it. And I can tell you, hands down, it would not have happened if it wasn't for him.
I thank you for that. I mean, it happened in spite of me, but actually getting it together, yeah, I had to push it across the goal line for sure. We had to raise, it was an independent thing, right? So we had to raise money from $1. There was no money. So we spent years raising money. Now I know about, I tell people all the time, I know what it's like, when these guys walk up on stage, or people, and they say, at the awards, the film awards, and they go, 20 years of work or whatever, 10 years of work. And this is, they get their Oscar or their whatever it is, Golden
Yeah.
Globe or whatever. And I always used to laugh and think, why does it take so long? Well, now I know. It took what, 8 years, 7 years, 7.5, 8 years. It took us 3 or 4 years to raise the money. Then it took us 2 years, well, partly because of COVID, to make the film. And then it took us another year to clear all the music. And then we had to do something to get it out. So I totally understand. It's like it's a long commitment.
And just so you know, so we've got an audience member asking. It's the doc is called "Learning to Live Together,"
I was just going to type it in. Okay.
and I just got to tell you, somebody asked about a soundtrack. Hey Wayne, can we get that going? That's a great idea.
It's being worked on.
Can you work on that?
Well, it's not that's
Another project.
that's out of my thing because it's the record label and artist thing. So, but it's being worked on.
Good.
It's not called a soundtrack, music from, because the film is only part of the show, right?
Yes.
The show is like 3 hours or something. The film's not a 3 hour, it's 1 hour and 43 minutes, but it also has a lot of the rehearsals and it's got a lot of the, background you're talking about, the meetings and when everybody got together. And I think it was Leon said to Chris Stainton, the keyboard player, two keyboard players, he said, haven't seen you in a while. And Chris Stainton turns around and goes, yeah, 42 years.
Is it still playing on Delta? On
Not sure, actually. It was on Delta for a while. It was on, we had it limited theatrical, as you know,
Yeah.
for a short period of time. We did a bunch of film festivals, and then I did the Delta deal, and we had it on Virgin Atlantic for a while. It was on Sky TV over in the UK. I don't know if it's still on. I think it is, because our license is still running over there.
So all our friends here that are flying Delta Airlines, go to the documentary section when you're on the plane.
See if it's still there. I'm not sure if
It's
it is.
still there.
Look.
Yes.
I'm just typing the title in now. Okay, here we go. There's a title, full title. So yeah, so we met there. I mean, we really got to know each other backstage, and we at that show. So and we went from there. And so those kinds of things are interesting. And from there and during that whole COVID period is how I got involved with Nito, honestly, right? Because there were just a bunch of us. Frank Riley was the ringleader, and he called like 16 agents that he knew and said, "Hey, maybe we should talk, see if there's something we can do." The business is probably going to change. We all got on the phone. We did a couple of conference calls, and we decided maybe we should have an organization, which was kind of interesting because what we had is 16 competitors, independents who were highly competitive, at least most of us were, with each other. All of a sudden trying to learn how to do business together, which is kind of an interesting concept. So we did, and we formed this organization. And then for everybody that's watching and listening, I dragged Nelly into it, kicking and screaming. She was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this or not. And she's on the board now. She's actually was elected treasurer. So she's one of the executives. We're in phase 2 of Nito, I call it, or maybe phase 3, but phase 2 for sure, because we're out of COVID. We helped to, create the awareness to raise the SVOG funds. And now we're just trying to be an organization for the, independent live talent managers, mainly business. That's our focus. Anyway, now we'll talk about it a little bit.
Well, I think you're being a little modest here because everybody that's on this call that's joining us had your business just shutter during COVID. And if it wasn't for Nito and organizations like NEVA that also formed, our businesses would have been gone. We wouldn't have been able to survive it. And so Nito was such an important component to saving us, not only the agents, but the managers. There was nobody representing managers. And so, Nito bringing us in as managers was a huge thing. We were given a voice from them. And I think the important part of Nito now moving forward is just our advocacy and just really supporting the independent space and the artist and all that need representation. So it's so important that everybody just join in and help us and keep it together, because we don't need another crisis to stay together. We just need to grow this. So if there is another crisis, we'll be as strong as ever and we'll be able to help, so many people without having to start from scratch.
We definitely need to be prepared. In case something does happen. You're right. In the meantime, there's a lot of advocacy that can be done and is being done, on our behalf. And the NEVA organization, which is very much kind of a sister organization to us because we came about the same time for the same reasons, different sides of the table, but still people that do business together. They did the same thing, for their constituency and for their members and representatives, people they represent. But that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. It was kind of a new thing. Okay, so we were shut down. We were rebooking tours. I booked, my clients' tours 3 different times during that period. And they finally did play. I think one I had to book a 4th time actually, because one of my clients was nervous about going to Europe even after COVID was over. And it was another thing of, I have no idea. I've never spoken to any politicians. I've never talked to senators and congressmen, never had lobbyists and whatever. And it was an interesting learning experience, I guess is the best way to put it. Something I would have never dreamed about, but then I would have never dreamed about COVID either. There's a lot of people on here that's saying hello to everybody. I'm trying to say hello back to everybody that I can.
We're trying to focus on this and
Trying to focus on this and
be
that.
able to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
So
Nelly, what do you do in your spare time? Do you
Do I
have
have-
spare time?
I don't have spare time. I just work. It feels like, I've got shows every weekend. So, my artists tend to be, we call them like weekend warriors. They
Yeah.
usually work, the weekends. So every weekend I've got somebody on the road and it just feels like that's my life. So I'm always on call. I feel like a doctor, because I have to be available. And some weekends are good and some weekends are not. And trying to deal with drama and some of the problems that happen on the road. And so I wish I wish I had more of a weekend per se.
Yeah.
I don't. And then traveling, like that's, the one thing COVID taught me, I gotta say, is that traveling, like, do you remember like all the times that we were on the road with our artist and we would go with them and leave with them? And it's like, we didn't get to see the city. We didn't get to like really experience all these places we were visiting. And and it was like, why can't I just put them on the plane leaving and then I can stay a little bit more? And so trying, I'm trying to do that more and more now because it's so important. Because that was, I can't tell you how many countries I've been to that I haven't really seen. It's crazy.
Same. I go in and out. I mean, there's times that I've been literally in and out. Flew in for the show, flew out the next morning. I don't even remember the hotel. I was in a hotel, but I have no idea. I can't remember.
No time.
No time, but that's mainly because then I had to go somewhere else and I had to go somewhere else. So yeah, and people ask me all the time, "Oh, you've been all over the place." I go, "Yeah, and I've seen nothing." I've
seen airports.
in the airports, the hotel, and the backstage. Now I even try to go out and see the front of the venue. At least I want to see that, But yeah, it's interesting, and it's interesting that you say you feel like a doctor, because I tell people that all the time. Oh, what's it like? It must be fun being an agent. I said, no, I'm a doctor. I can get called at any time, and it could be a problem, or I need to go do something, or I may have to jump on a plane. But that's the life. That's the life we decided to do, to lead, right? We took that on, and it's become that. I just wanted to make one. Hopefully, I'm allowed to do this. Tom won't say no. I want to make one pitch for Nito. If there's anybody on here that's a manager and agent that's not a member, go online, www.nitolive.org. Check out our website. Check out what we do. Join the organization. Become part of it. We need people that are independent in this space, that are managers or agents, to come together. Okay, so please do that. That's my only commercial. Now we can go back to regular primetime programming.
So what was your favorite place that you went to?
My favorite place?
What's your favorite all-time, your favorite all-time country that you visited?
Oh my God. I don't know. I have so many of them. I don't know. I love Japan.
Yeah.
But Taiwan was, some of these places I haven't been to in a very long time. I went to Bangkok, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan. Where else did I go? In Southeast Asia, like very early on, the cycle of many artists going there, Western artists going there. I mean, I did the original trip that I went through there was putting dates together for David Bowie after the Serious Moonlight tour, we're in Japan. You have to go to Australia. There's like I think we had 3 weeks in Australia, and then the tour was supposed to be over. And we were in maybe 2.5 weeks, and we were in Japan. And he decided he wanted to do Southeast Asia because basically at that time, very few people, if anyone, did it, like played there. Like, I want to go. I don't care where I play. And I go, I don't know if you want to say that, but okay. So I ended up getting on a plane because we had like a 3 or 4 days between the end of Japan and the beginning of the tour in Australia. The tour in Australia were like virtually all outdoor, like stadiums or tennis stadiums, football stadiums, whatever. And football meaning soccer, but it's their football. And so I, as one of the co-producers of the tour, took on the responsibility of doing the advance. So I had to book a tour. You can understand this, Nelly. I had to book a tour, get it on sale, sell tickets in like less than 3 weeks. Oh, and I had to find promoters and venues. Okay. So I just took a trip and I hit them. I hit like the 4 cities in 2 days, basically. And met with people and looked at venues, looked at hotels, and I put this tour together that we affectionately called, we on the staff and the production side of it, called Bungle in the Jungle. That's what we called it. Because it was probably going to be, and I'm probably not allowed to use these words, so I won't. I'll have to think of something else to say.
Well, we didn't ask Tom. Are we allowed to cuss on this? Are we allowed to talk like truck drivers?
Absolutely. Have at it.
It was
Welcome.
definitely going to be a shit show, and it was. Okay, so I mean, it was okay, but it was a shit show for sure. I mean, it was. So I go there, these people, and it's like one place we played the Hong Kong, like arena, so that was fine because that was a regular place. A lot of artists played there, mostly Asian artists, and they did sporting events and things, so that was fine, that was okay. But I get to Singapore and they were going to put us at an end of a stadium, set up, and but we have to be careful. We can't ruin the turf because there's like this world tournament, football, soccer tournament going on the next week, right? So whatever you do, you can't ruin the turf. Meanwhile, it's raining. Right. So we do that. And then I have to go to Bangkok, and Bangkok, they don't have any equipment. They got no gear. They got no stage. They got nowhere to play it. So they find an outdoor space somewhere, and they're going to build a stage, and they're going to get the sound and stuff. And so then, I keep going, and then I get down to Australia, we do the tour, and then we come back to do this Bungle in the Jungle tour, we called it. He hated it, by the way. He hated that name. But we land in Bangkok. I'll never forget this. We're coming from the airport. We're in the bus, a bus, right? Like a big bus. It was like a freaking school bus or something, right? In the bus, coming from the airport with the band and the crew. And the production manager looks over at me and he goes, when this is over, I am going to fucking kill you. And I said to him, it's not going to be that bad, I promise. And as we're driving, I look to the right and there's this big field, and they're literally building a stage. The show's in 2 days. They're building a stage, right? There's a bunch of guys building a stage. And I asked the manager, the promoter later, his production guy, where'd you get the stage from? I said, why are you building that stage? It looks like it's going to be pretty big. And where'd you get it from? He goes, oh no, we didn't have it. He says, we're building it. We have the tubes, we're cutting them, we're putting them together. They were literally creating what we just come in and they just throw the thing up, and it's all those pieces and it's, the steel and whatever. They were making it, like piecing it together. They had like hundreds of people out there making this shit. And then it was like, okay, what's the PA going to be? Oh, it's coming in from, like Hong Kong or something. I said, what do you mean it's coming in from Hong Kong? It'll be here in time for the show. What ended up happening was they sent boxes of speakers. And the day of the show, they were putting speakers, screwing them in the boxes, the wooden boxes they made, and they were twisting the wires, for the connections to the PA system. So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point. It was kind of fun, but it was a definite bungle in the jungle.
Well, I just want to tell anybody who's ever, when you do a tour of Asia, like if Japan is your first stop, you're screwed because Japan has it all together. It incredible, impeccable, and perfect. And then you go to these other countries, like Wayne said, and there is nothing on stage. If there is a stage and you're starting from scratch, and we've built so many, I've been in those situations so many times when you walk into a venue and it's still being built and there's no backline on stage, even though you've advanced it like 10 times over, and you're just throwing stuff up to try to make the show. It's a really interesting experience. But I have to say, Wayne, that I first went to Japan in the early 90s, and I had a tour, I had a performing arts center kind of tour, like big venues. Um, the First of all, I hated it the first time I went. As a woman, I just didn't find it to be really appealing. I don't think they treated women really well during that time. And the audiences, being in these audiences in these big theaters, they were so quiet. They were just so polite and they would just clap and it was so hard to get this emotion and this feeling of excitement from the stage. Um, and I refused to go back. I ended up going back 20 years later,
Yeah.
totally different place.
No,
It
it did totally
changed,
change. Yeah.
it changed, people lightened up, they started to have a sense of humor. Very different place.
No, the new generation really, it did totally change because the whole, even the concept of the, my word is my bond thing, like to the death, that changed too. It used to be, whatever they said, it would happen. Don't worry about it. In Japan for sure.
Yeah.
But yes, I remember on the same tour I'm talking about, we did a show outdoors there, which wasn't normal then at that time. Like they didn't do a lot of outdoor shows. So we did it because we played, some big places, but we did this outdoor show and I get to the site and there's people sitting, like the fans are sitting. There's no barricades, there's nothing. They have like a rope on the ground, right? And I look and I'm going, oh, this is going to be a problem. And I go to the security guy and he looks and he goes, this is definitely going to be an issue. And I go to the promoter, I go, we can't, you have a rope. You got to put people. No, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. And I'm thinking, it's going to be, no, it's going to be fine. This is on Bowie, obviously. And we did the show and people didn't freaking move. They sat, nobody rushed the stage. It's what you talked about. I mean, they got excited, but they stood in their place. Nobody dared move forward because they were told they were not to, they couldn't, but it changed. Years later, it definitely changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's
Oh,
one
Jerry
thing.
Lembo. Wait, I got to do a shout out. Jerry Lembo, two things for Jerry Lembo. He says, as a world warrior, I frequently would wake up and look at the area code on the phone, on the hotel phone to find out what town was in. Similar for me. I look out the window to see where am I? Am I in England? Am I in Germany? Where am I? I can't remember. I was in Italy last night. That's all I can remember. And then he also says, Bungle in the Jungle, Jethro Tull from the album War Child. Yes, Jerry. Absolutely correct. You got it. You win the prize. Tom, send him a star. The tour accountant on that tour used to be Jethro Tull's tour account. He named it. Okay, that's where it came from. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to mention this because Wayne and I have talked about this, and it was such a fun point of conversation. So if anybody remembers the US Festival, it was the biggest festival ever. Um,
It's time. I think
at for its time, it was the biggest festival, and I got a chance to I attended that festival, and years later, I meet Wayne, and I find out that he was very involved because obviously he was representing David Bowie at the time, and it was just so funny. Like our stories in the industry, how everything is 6 degrees of separation, and we were in the same places and things that happen. And I just love that about our business. And even though it feels so vast, it is so small. And we have such a good time like talking about old stories because we all have them. We all have them.
So the US Festival was interesting because, for me, because we were on tour in Europe. It was kind of in the middle of our tour. And they wanted him to play, they made an offer, which we turned down initially. We had a charter plane. We had the band and crew, a lot of gear. And to do it, we'd have to get everything over there. which was going to be very expensive, right? And then back. And so it's a very long story. I'll make it short because I don't want to bore anybody and there might not be enough time, but we all got on this plane, too many people on this charter plane because it was band and crew. Normally the crew was on the ground and the band and the like management, if you like, tour management were on the plane. So we all loaded up on this plane. We loaded up as much gear as we can. We literally, so it was a, this is going way back now. It was a 707, if you remember that. And it was an old one. It was oldish. It wasn't like brand new, but it was a 707 charter plane. So it had, the big lounge and all that, and the sleeping lounge in the back and whatever. So it was made for really, for like for the band and for the tour management.
Did
And
anybody have to, did anybody have to sit on the floor because there weren't enough seats?
I
Like
was
Red
just going
Dog
to get
did?
that, Nelly. The place was jammed. We had gear on there.
Oh my God.
We had a gear in the hold. We had gear on board. The place was jammed. It was like there was not enough space for the amount of people we had on there. And we fly over, if I'm not mistaken, we were in south of France. And we flew overnight to Orange County, I think, to land. And we landed at the airport. I don't know if it was a John Wayne airport or where, off the top of my head where it was. It probably was John Wayne, actually, but I don't remember. We landed, I was half asleep because we've been traveling forever. We get off the plane, we get down to the tarmac, and the customs people come out to meet us. And they come, they do a quick thing, who are we? We tell them what we are, and blah, blah, blah. And then the guy comes off and goes, okay, everybody off the plane, we have to confiscate it. I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're confiscating the plane? We have our gear on there, we have our baggage, we have to go back. Nope. I know it was. We were landing to refuel and so I don't remember where we flew into. We were landing to refuel and then we were flying it to another airport, but it was at, whatever, Southern California. So it was in that area. And so we were landing, refueling and flying. And because the hotel was wherever the other airport was. So they said, no, you can't use the plane. We'll go, well, we have to get over here. Like we got like 30 people or whatever it was. We had 35. I don't remember how many there were. Nope, you can't have the plane back. And it was one of those things. I hate to say this, on live TV or whatever, but I stand up and I say to the guy, do you know who we are? Do you know who's on this plane? And he looks at me and he goes, I don't really care. And then my co-producer and I of my partner on that tour looks at me and goes, you need to shut up or we're going to get arrested. They all have badges. I mean, there was like the freaking government guys. And it was like, so we end up in the airport, sitting on the ground. You talk about sitting on the ground, trying to figure out how we're going to get everybody to where the hotel is. So we had to like call, cars and vans. And I don't know, we were there for a couple of hours. And then we got to the airport, we played the gig. And then we got the plane back in the end. The reason they confiscated was we had too many people. We had too much weight. And it wasn't, it wasn't whatever they call it. It wasn't licensed or registered to have that many people on board. And so they shut us down. But, that's all part of it. We made the gig. It was a fantastic gig. Had some other funny things to tell you about that too, but I could get shot if I tell you all the stories actually. So what's his name? Wozniak was the financer, right?
I don't remember.
The guy from Apple.
Actually,
The partner from Apple.
I
Tell me
wasn't
his
yet
name.
in the business. Yeah, Wozniak.
Yeah,
Wozniak.
Wozniak.
Yeah.
He was the financer.
Oh yeah, Larry Butler said it was.
Steve Wozniak. Yeah, Steve Wozniak. Steve
And Larry
Wozniak.
Butler should be on this too.
He was one of the financing guys. And what's his name was the one that, who was it?
I don't remember who the promoter was.
Hey, hold on. Oh my God, it's coming to me. He was Barry Fay.
Was it Barry that did that?
Barry Fay.
Wow.
Barry Fay was the buyer promoter. Yeah, Barry Fay. Because Barry was the one that kept calling me in London going, you got to do this. And I go, no, I'm not interested. Boom. And, no, we got how much do you want? No, you don't even want to ask. Hang up. It was one of those. And then we finally got, what we wanted. And then I told Chuck Morris this story actually. And he started laughing because he was he was working for Barry at the time. So I told him the story. I said, you don't really know the inside scoop on the Yes Festival. I'm going to tell you with David Bowie. And I told him the story and he was like, oh my God. And I said, yeah.
I remember waiting for Van Halen to come out. They took 2 hours to come on stage and David Lee Roth came out in assless chaps. And it was like, Yeah, I'm too close for this I gotta go. I lasted like 3 songs. I'm like, no, this is such disrespect. I'm out. But yeah, it
Those,
was
those are
a
some of
fun
the,
time.
those are some of the funny times from the business. Yeah, those are the funny times. So what happened, well, really quick, I don't want to belabor it. This is like a 2 hour story from the beginning to the end. But so we're on site and we're like, okay, no filming, no this, no no recording, no whatever. And I hope Wozniak doesn't hear this. He's going to kill me. But I'm going to go, you're the fucking guy. So my tour partner and I, that was producing the tour, we're walking down the thing and we see this line coming from, like, because they had cameras that were showing it on the screens, remember? So we see lines coming from where the truck is, and we're following the lines, and they're going and they're going and they're going out past the thing, and they're going. And it turned out that they had a feed going to a house he either owned or rented, and he and his friends were there watching the show. They weren't at the freaking site; they were watching it in their like living room. And
Wow.
and we had said no recording because David didn't want anything recorded.
Yeah.
He hadn't done the tour in America yet. Was the other thing. We didn't want to blow the whole. Here's the show. So we went into the truck and we told the guy, you got to disconnect the lines. He goes, oh no, Mr. Wozniak, you got to disconnect the lines. We're not going on stage. And so they disconnected the lines, and the show starts, and somebody comes running down, go, what happened? Who disconnected the lines? I was like, I don't know. And then, off we went. So anyway, those are some of the fun times.
Hey, Tom threw something in here, question about what's the difference. Sorry to go off topic here, but what's the difference between a manager and an agent? And I mean, from my perspective, I'm a manager, Wayne's an agent. The agent obviously is the one that books the shows, and a lot of times managers and agents are collectively talking about where we need to see the artist go and grow, and the types of venues, and kind of strategic as to what a tour would look like, and we work together to accomplish that. And once that's done, and Wayne's an anomaly in this because I think he's very involved in the marketing aspect of it, which not a lot of agents do. But once the tour is booked, it's all like it goes all into the manager's lap to take care of everything from that point on, as far as marketing, logistics, and putting everybody together, and just building a team, and promoting anything that's being released at the time. With most of the times we've done tours that support records, so that was a very big push. But it just everything falls into the manager's lap, and the manager does the rest. But
And Larry Butler just pointed out, which I'll mention. Larry, you're getting a lot of credit here. You're going to have to send me a Christmas present. In California, managers are not allowed to book by law. So in other
all the
parts of the
talent
country, they
managers
can. They can. And so in some places, managers actually book the acts early on, maybe even sometimes later on in the career. In California, there's supposed to be a distinct difference and between the manager and the agent. It's got to be really at arm's length relationship. And that's due to the
Talent Managers Act.
the Talent Managers Act, the California whatever licenses for film and TV. Really, I think that's where it came from, didn't it? Originally,
It came from, it originated from, really for the protection of children in the industry through SAG. And it was so that, there wasn't a double commission, and it was more, I'm trying to think of the words that were used, in describing it. But if anybody looks it up, yes, it was Jackie Coogan, correct, that started it. And
Yep,
that's why people have what's called a Coogan account for kids under 18
yep.
that cannot be touched by an adult, other than a commission, a rightful commission due. Um, and it's very problematic. There are definitely groups that have been fighting it for years because
Yep.
it's archaic and it shouldn't affect our industry. There are a lot more protections on the acting side than there used to be, but it should have never crossed over on the music side. It means it's crazy. So hey, it's one of those things that I hope that NITO, through our advocacies, with different groups, can change that narrative, because it's wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah. Well, you're right. It was for protection, but it got it got expanded probably beyond the scope that it should be.
Right.
If I remember correctly, though, even in California, an agent can act in the capacity of a manager for which not very many acts are or artists are these days. For an AFM artist, there's an agreement that the AFM has. I don't know if they still have. They had that was like an agent / management agreement. So you could act in a capacity of a manager. You couldn't actually be the manager, but you could get an additional commission if you take care of some managerial functions. Now, I don't know how that works in California, but it is the AFM. So I assume that it was acceptable out there as well.
You have to you have to have a proper license.
Yeah.
That's the key, is the proper license. But the ridiculousness of this act in terms of what a manager can and cannot do is so restrictive, especially for music managers. Again, it's something that is so archaic and does not represent our business, and it is something that we have to fight.
Yep.
I don't know about this lawsuit between CAA and Range Media. But and I didn't know it could be through with agencies. It's usually with managers, but very interesting.
We'll have to put that on one of our future agendas at NITO, that we're going to get into that.
Yes.
So what else, Nelly?
Well, I mean, you know,
Anybody have any questions? How about that? Anybody else have any questions? Well, it says something about the Jefferson Airplane ruling in the 70s.
that I don't know about.
Well, one of the things I wanted to mention actually is I know of at least 3 cases of situations where managers who booked their artists or clients early on in the career, later with an agent, that became very successful, made a lot of money, and ended up suing the manager to get out of their contract, and actually got all the commissions
Mm-hmm.
returned, going back to day one.
Right.
And California again, California.
I mean, could you imagine as a manager if you're
No.
you're trying to make a living for the artist, and the artist asks you to do something and you go, I can't. My hands are tied.
Exactly.
Figure out another way.
Or you do, and you help them get by, and then years later, you end up having to pay all the money back.
Right.
Right? How
Right.
about that? So somebody's asking, oh wait, someone who asked, Tom? Somebody asked, which is higher stress, agents or managers? I think they're equally stressed. I mean, the managers may be more stressful because it's really a day on day, day to day to day situation, generally speaking, right, Nelly, with the client.
I think so. And plus having to deal with the show head on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And with the agents, I mean, it depends on what kind of agent you are. I get very involved in a lot of my client stuff. So I literally, I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh crap, I got to take care of this, or I wonder if this is okay, or whatever. And maybe most agents don't. I mean, there's a lot of agents just book the shows and they have great weekends. I'm unfortunately not one of those. So I'd say probably more on the manager side, but just depends on how involved you are.
Absolutely.
Agents need to be licensed. Managers only need to hang out. Okay. Oh, hang a shingle. Sorry. I thought it said hang out.
Yes, that's true.
And
That's
then
true.
Larry also says, Larry, you're being very vocal today. Managers are woken up at 3 a.m. Agents don't. That's not true, Larry. I am divorced. And one of the things that was an issue with my ex-wife was the calls I used to get at 3 o'clock in the morning from clients. So I don't think that's totally the case. Again, depending on what kind of agent you are.
Was it from clients or was it from managers?
No, it was a
that-
client.
It was
The
the
client.
client calling you
Should I say
directly.
who it was? Should I say who it was? Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Client without a manager. But I
Ah.
have had over the years numbers of clients without managers. So I would say yes, probably mostly clients without managers, if not all. Because then who else is there? So then it's the next person. Okay, no manager. Let me call the agent.
Yes.
What are my, whatever, 7 o'clock in the morning. What are my chart positions? I'm like, seriously? I'm your agent. I'm not your manager. But they don't have a manager, so they call me. They want to know what the chart position is. That happens.
We have this question: are artists encouraged pressure to sign 360 deals, or has that subsided somewhat? Also, what do you wish labels would consider to create a win-win contract that lead to long-standing relationships? I just wish labels would be labels and actually do their jobs and actually spend money to market the artist and believe in the artist and drive it. The 360 deal, I've always been absolutely against, because I think that in order to give away that much, they've got to come to the table to give away that much. And they don't. It's not equal by any means. And I think that labels, I mean, labels now, your artist has to have so much social media presence, so many streams at the various DSPs before they even consider you. So it's almost as if you've done the work for them, which leads one to think, well, do you really need a label, or do you really need the distributor? And the question always leads to how much money you really need to market the record. And if you don't have the finances, labels are that go-to, and you just have to find creative ways to do deals nowadays to help promote the artist. The biggest thing for managers, I got to tell you, Sonia, is right now is we're trying to figure out this iron curtain behind everything. There is no rhyme or reason. We don't know what the secret sauce is between these algorithms to get our artists developed. We have no idea. We're all still trying to figure it out. I talk to marketing people all the time, and I ask them about playlisting, and I ask them about ideas, and so many people have no idea. It's, I don't know where it comes from, how it's done. We're still trying to figure that out. And I just find it interesting that TikTok is on the market right now, and they're willing to sell, but they're not going to give you their secret sauce. So it's that whole concept of, we are living in a world of technology with algorithms that none of us are privy or understand. And so if ever somebody's got some ideas on that, I'd love to hear that one.
Bruce Houghton says or asks, with higher costs and more competition, it's getting harder than ever for emerging and mid-level acts to turn a profit. At the same time, the independent venues they play are feeling the same pressures. How do you see this dichotomy being resolved? Conversation, long conversation, because you're right, and it is true. And artists on the road today. I mean, even a startup. I mean, in the old days, not that old days, but in the older days, they'd get in a van, they'd run around, young kids, obviously, if they're like 45 or 50, they're not necessarily going to want to be in a van running around the country, but, younger bands would be running around the country, they'd be in a van, they'd work, they'd scratch, they'd make some money on merchandising, they'd pay for their hotels and gas, and they'd move on. In today's world, I don't even know if that's possible anymore. I think they've got to have some kind of money. They've got to have some kind of financing to make it work, because nothing's cheap. Rentals, gas, if you're staying in a hotel, maybe they just sleep in the van. I don't know. So yes, it is an issue, and the venues are feeling it. And the venues, there's been conversations, Bruce, as you know, because you were on the board of NITO for a very long time. There's been conversations with the venues. We're having some. NITO NEVA are having conversations. There's a lot of conversation around the whole merchandising thing. Maybe the artist should keep the 100% of it, especially the emerging acts, because they're living off of that. They're not necessarily living off of the money they're making, getting paid 150 to 250 to open a show, which is terrible to begin with. I mean, for somebody to work for that much, I'm not passing judgment on the venue or a promoter, but to pay somebody that much is kind of like slavery. I mean, really, they can't even afford to eat at that much money. It's terrible. So, there is no clear-cut answer. It's just going to take some conversation and discussion. We are having it. For those of you who are interested in NITO, want to know what we do, that's one of the things we're doing, we're having, is those conversations, trying to see if we can come up with some kind of a solution. It is a dichotomy, and it's unfortunate. That's where we're on two sides of the table, opposite sides of the table. We're just trying to come to the middle somewhere. Love the input and insight. Sonia, you're welcome.
On the venue side, like looking at that question from Bruce, is we as artists, and managers, we make an investment in going into these cities to build a following for the artists. So we do take a hit, and we do make an investment in doing that. And I think that the venues, if the venues believe in the emerging artist, they too need to make that commitment. And there needs to be that synergy, like there used to be in the old days, where promoters helped develop these emerging artists, because if we don't keep doing that, we're not going to have any more emerging artists. We need the support on both sides. We, as managers and artists, are making the investment in going on the road and losing money. And I know nobody wants to lose money, but again, you gotta spend money to make money. And I think it's a long-term goal that has to be looked at for a lot of the promoters that are in it for long term. You're going to build these artists, and we need to build that exclusivity and that loyalty and that support system for each other. I think that we need that.
You hit the nail on the head, because Bruce is saying now, very true. Venues and promoters used to do more to build acts, and it's true. They did back in the day, but they did for different reasons. Like the venues that helped to build the acts were actually not paying the acts very much money. And I'm going way back now, probably maybe back before a lot of people on here's time, without dating myself. The deals were pretty crap, but what you did do is you got work, and you got work in the major cities, New York, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Boston. And they were the old school. You used to go in, used to play 5 nights or 6 nights, 2 shows a night. You didn't get paid a whole lot of money, but at least you were working. But that's what really built it up. In today's world, when you're in one night and out, that doesn't really build it. It takes a long time to do that. How many times do you have to hit the city, any city, to get that following together? I mean, you can't just do it in one night. So there's a whole concept that's changed. And then, and then promoters in those days, in the days I'm talking about with the multiple night theater club things, some of the promoters owned those clubs, and that was their feeder, if you like. And then they did invest, because then they'd look for a slot, and they'd create a show, and they'd have some favorite acts, or if there was a favor for an agent or a manager, they'd do that. And they helped build it. But a lot of that went out the window with in today's world, it's how much are you paying, and we're taking the best deal, which is, just part of, unfortunately, as agents, that's part of what we do for clients. But that, what you're talking about, Nelly, that relationship went out of it, frankly. Like today, to get promoters to invest like that, for most of them are going to say, for what reason? I'm not going to have the act when it happens. It's going to go to, without naming names, the 2 big guys. Okay.
Yeah, but you remember the old days where you were loyal to the promoter, and the promoter you would take the promoter with you to the big guys and say, this has got to be done collectively.
Correct.
When you had enough power, when you get to that point, you have enough power to do that. You can do that. And artists are doing that now. They
100%.
absolutely are being loyal to those people. And I think you can build that. I think we have to get back to that situation. Because I
Dean Hollister
totally
just
believe in
agreed.
loyalty. Huh?
Dean Hollister just says, sorry to interrupt, but he hit it here. It says, hard to take as an independent promoter to build an act and have them go elsewhere, i.e. Live Nation. Whoops, wasn't supposed to say that. When they get to the point, agree with Norm. And Norm said, in bygone days, many markets and pioneering radio stations collaborating with independent venues and promoters, helping to establish artists on a market-by-market basis. Yeah, so those days are gone. Can we get back to them? I don't know. That's like the golden age. Can we really get back there? I don't know. But we can get close. We can do what you're talking about, Nelly. I try to do that. With the artists that I have, I try to maintain relationships for them with promoters, certain promoters, so that there is an upward climb. If not, I don't know, if they do something and it works, and then the next time it doesn't go as well, and you change promoters, then who do you go to? Maybe that guy doesn't want him, or person doesn't want him back, and the other guy doesn't want him back either now, because you made a move. So I just say to my artists, my clients, you can do what you want. If you want to go for the money, it's fine. That's my job. I'll do that. If you want to try to have a relationship, that's also a good reason, a good important thing to do for this reason. And it just depends on what you think about your career. If you think you're gonna, go to the top and never come down, then you do whatever you want. If
What
you,
comes up must always come down.
well,
And every agent, every manager, and every artist has to think that way. And if they don't, they're like kidding themselves. It always happens. There's always a trajectory
I was
up,
just gonna
and
say,
a trajectory down. It's
there's a comedian named Richard Belzer. I don't know who knows him. When I worked at William Morris years ago, I used to have the office, when I first started working there, I had the office closest to on the floor closest to the door to the receptionist, right? So whoever came in and out usually went by my office. And Richard Belzer used to come to see, his what did they call him? Location agent down the hall, the ones that built book the Vegas and the location dates and those things, right? Those multiple nights things, right? So his agent was down there. So he used to walk by my office all the time and he'd stick his head in and go, "Get me work, get me work, get all the time, get me work." And I finally just got to a point. I go, "Richard, please just go down there. Stop poking your head in my office." And he comes in one day and he said to me, I'll never forget it. He goes, "Just remember, you're going to see the same people on the way up that you see on the way down. And you as an agent better remember that." And he walked out and I was like, okay. And then meanwhile, like years later, he was on TV. So, he had succeed, but you're right. That point is valid. Very few are going to stay at the top. Very few.
Yeah, and we need to nurture relationships, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like having been in this business now for 30 plus years, I'm working with the same promoters I've worked with for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I've built those relationships and I just think it's really important. I really wish we had the outlets that we had back then. We
Yeah,
don't have that.
wish so too.
And
We're 2 minutes overtime, Nelly. Tom's on. He's gonna
Tom's on,
yank
he's
it.
ready to kick us out.
Hook's coming. Here comes the hook.
Not at all. I'm enjoying this, and you all are espousing wisdom. And I mean, what Nelly's talking about with relationships, that is gospel truth in this industry more than any business that I'm ever been exposed to. This music industry is so insular. And Wayne, you're exactly right. Those we see on the way up, we will see on the way down.
This business is all about, I tell every young person that comes in, intern, whatever, staff person, agent, it's all about relationships. Our business is all about relationships. Yes, if you have the hottest acts, okay, you call the shots. But if you don't, and most of us don't necessarily, right? Most agents don't have the hottest acts. It's all relationships. It's all relationships.
And a lot of it is managing expectations.
Totally.
That is such a hard thing to do. Such a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I really appreciate the work that you all are doing at Nito and in general in this industry. It's people like you that make this a great place to work. And so I very much value the relationships that I have with you two, as well as our audience. And I know they have benefited greatly from hearing your stories today. So thank you. To the audience, I promised you would leave here smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. I think we delivered on that promise. I just want to simply close by saying, be nice to each other, especially our friends in Los Angeles these days.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's it.
Hold on, before you knock off, I just want to thank everybody.
Absolutely. Peace out, folks.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Take care, guys.